There are some actors on TV or in film that you only remember as being at an older age. Isabel Sanford, Mrs. Jefferson of the TV show The Jeffersons, comes to mind. In my research for this video, I looked in the usual sources for as much information as was available for something on Isabel Sanford in her 20s or 30s, without much success. Then I stopped to think that, of course, it is not everyone that starts acting early and that there are actors who get a break later on in their journey. Also, without the availability of the internet and social media where any and everyone can post images, videos, and more of themselves, as is the case now, there is bound to not be a dearth of available material for actors or musicians who may have started their careers a little later, especially prior to the internet days. Back to Isabel Sanford. Born in 1917 would mean she was 58 years old in 1975 when the TV show The Jeffersons began, where she remained for 10 years till 1985 at an age of 68. She certainly aged gracefully. I would have placed her at a full 10 years or more younger than 58 when she began the series. So you could say Isabel Sanford was a late bloomer, getting a big break at a more advanced age. Although she harbored the desire and got the opportunity to dabble in stage plays in her 30s, it was not until she was about 43 that she decided to try to take things to a higher level by getting on a bus to Los Angeles with her 3 children, seeking better opportunities. In a 7-year period, she had moved through various stage roles to land a part in the 1967 movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner starring Sidney Poitier. As a result of this exposure, some influential executives took notice of her talent, including producer Norman Lear, who cast her as Louise Jefferson in the TV series All in the Family, where she would remain between 1971 and 1975. Isabel Sanford's role in All in the Family spawned into The Jeffersons in 1975, also a Norman Lear production. Sherman Hemsley, who played her husband in All in the Family, was also right there, George Jefferson himself, of The Jeffersons. Incidentally, a little-known fact is that Isabel Sanford was a full 20 years older than Sherman Hemsley, but you wouldn't know it because they both looked the same, around the same age, while the show was on. That means that she was looking younger and he was looking older, or something like that. For her excellent work on the show The Jeffersons, and after several nominations, Isabel Sanford won a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series in 1981, the first African-American actress to achieve this honor.
At last.
Following The Jeffersons at age 69, mostly guest starring roles on television and in film came her way. Isabel Sanford passed away in July 2004, 6 months after receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Looking back at Isabel Sanford's career, the role of Mrs. Louise Jefferson, fondly known as Wheezy, was a pivotal and central role in her entertainment career. Louise and George gave me tons of laughs, and anytime I have the opportunity to watch The Jeffersons, I am in, especially if Mother Jefferson is anywhere in the mix.
I've got something to say. You didn't tell him, did you?
Oh, you know me, Mother Jefferson.
Yeah, that's why I asked. Well, George. Morning, everybody.
Jeanette Dubois was an actress and singer, famous for playing Willona in the 1970s TV show Good Times. She sang the theme for another hit show called The Jeffersons. She went on to do a lot of things in music, movies, and the stage.
6'2", shoulders out to here, and a smile that lit up the night, and he mugged me.
Janet Dubois was married to an Indian, Mr. Sajit Gupta, and they had 4 children together. I personally remember her for her charm, her grace, her presence, and just her huge bubbly personality. Whether Jeanette Dubois was singing, acting, performing on stage, engaged in philanthropy, whatever she did, she always gave it her all, and that's what I really appreciate about her. Her sunset was in 2020, but we will always remember her for the light that she was. We miss you, Janet.
Yeah, we finally got a piece of the pie.
We continue to miss the wonderful singer Miss Donna Summer, but many people don't know that she was also a very talented and skilled painter. She had a lot of paintings to her name before she passed away in 2012. Her love for painting likely inspired the lyrics of one of her songs called Dinner with Gershwin. She made appearances over time in the press to show and highlight her love for art and painting.
Such an artiste, excuse us.
Oh, garçon, what can I say?
How long have you been doing this?
I've been painting all my life, and but I guess in the last 4 years, and then in the last year, I really started taking it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah. Really grows on you, doesn't it? To have
Sure does.
Donna Summer's work was indeed great and classic. To think she still had all this in her with the kind of music she was giving us, it's really almost hard to believe. And that such talent resided in this great woman who gave the world music, beginning with the disco era, and she transcended into other kinds of music genres, remaining firmly, though, in that kind of music over time. And she was known for classic songs, which include On the Radio and Last Dance. So when one talks about the arts and Donna Summer, we're talking about the art of painting and the art of great music. We will continue to miss her. She left us due to lung cancer in 2012 in the month of May. And she actually gave her last performance about 7 months before that, during which she had the diagnosis, but she still gave it her all when she did 2 songs that were televised, and she was a trooper, and I will always appreciate Donna Summer. It was showtime at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York City. The featured artists were the great group that had hit after hit in the 1980s and 90s, The Whispers, and the one and only diva of songs, the unforgettable and incomparable Phyllis Hyman. There was excitement in the air on the very day, and Phyllis had been said to be looking forward to doing her thing at the Apollo that evening of the 30th of June, 1995. Phyllis Hyman was born under the star sign of Cancer on July 6, 1949, so her birthday was fast approaching. After a tumultuous career of highs and lows that included depression and being diagnosed bipolar, Phyllis was said to be on the up again and looking forward to the concert performance. With all the last-minute preparations ongoing at the Apollo Theater, back at Phyllis Hyman's New York City apartment, she had given her staff instructions to alert her in the early afternoon so she could attend sound check at the Apollo. So they complied with her instructions. Back at the Apollo, as the afternoon changed into the evening time, the Whispers were preparing to hit the stage, and the concert-goers began to arrive for the show that they anticipated would be a very exciting and fulfilling one. At Phyllis's apartment, her staff returned and tried to get her attention around 2 p.m. Not getting a response at the door, they forced their way in and found an unconscious Phyllis. She was rushed to the hospital but sadly passed on a couple of hours later. She had apparently taken a lethal dose of a sedative along with alcohol. With the unknowing crowd still anticipating her performance back at the Apollo, it was around the time that the Whispers were to take the stage that the word began to come in about what had happened to Phyllis Hyman. As expected, this was shocking news that affected everyone that had come to watch the concert. However, and in the memory of Phyllis Hyman, the show went on and her band played and sang her songs. Even the Whispers that had been skeptical about initially performing came out to do some material in her honor. Though we lost the treasure in Phyllis Hyman on that particular day, her memory continues to live on in our minds and in our hearts.
This time I'm not giving in. Yes, I am alone. Yes, I'm on my own. But for the first time in my life, I'm gonna carry on.
Just sitting here thinking about Dorothy Dandridge. Wow, what a career she had. Singer, actress, first black woman to be nominated for an Oscar in the Best Actress category. Wow, she had a life, didn't she? Born in 1922, she was born to a family of a mother who was an entertainer, and her father was not in the mix after a while, and she had a sister, and she started off singing with her sister. They formed a group. What a life she had, really. She was often very sad, though, during most of her life. She got married early. She blamed her insistence on waiting for him to be around before she was taken to the hospital when she was pregnant on the mental challenge that her daughter eventually had. And I don't think she recovered much from that. But she stayed on course to become an actress. And she was content being a full-time housewife and mom. But after what happened to her daughter and then her marriage ended, she decided to get with the program and get into acting more because she'd already been singing. And there was the sexual abuse from her mother's lesbian girlfriend. when she was growing up. But that is said to have stopped when Dorothy fought with and actually beat up her mother's girlfriend that had been tampering with her at that point. And that ended. But it certainly left a mark in her life, probably, that led to her negative state over time, a depressed state over time. Not to mention the failed relationships she had, interrelationships she had with people that didn't really care that much for her. They were, instead of managers, they were damagers. She married a few times. She was looking for something that she didn't seem to find. It was really a sad thing, all the way down to her high point of getting nominated for Carmen Jones for the Best Actress, going, not expecting to win. And she went on to continue to sing and act, and the roles started to get slim in her late 30s. Her daughter, meanwhile, was in an institution somewhere. Of course, her sister was around, but she probably wasn't as much in touch with her at this point in time. It was a difficult time for Dorothy. Roles really just kind of got really very slim as she approached 40 years old, and she was sort of getting desperate. She didn't have much money, and things were not looking good for her. She gained some weight. She didn't feel she was as attractive as she used to be, and even the relationship aspect of things sort of dried up. It was said that she mentioned to people that I'm always alone in my home. Nobody asked me out for a date. And then one of the gentlemen said, well, I don't think that's possible. A pretty woman like you, so beautiful. Why wouldn't people ask you for a date? And she asked this gentleman, who was actually one of her co-stars in one of the movies that she acted in. And then she asked him, have you ever asked me out on a date? A strong black man like you, a strong, confident gentleman like you, have you asked me out? And he looked at her and said, no, because I feel like you'll say no to me, that other people will be asking you out. And this is possibly one of the reasons why she ended up in a lot of interracial relationships, and relationships that just she even knew wouldn't last, but she felt she had to go somewhere that would accept her, she felt. And it was really unfortunate how her life turned out. Her life could have been different. She had some solid people in her life, such as Mr. Earl Mills, who was her manager for a long period, and actually he was there all the way till the end. So heading into 1965, she was 42 years old, and she made up her mind that she wanted to get herself back together. She had gained some weight, so she said she was going to work out, she's going to get back in shape. And she started to reach out, and Earl Mills was still around, and he helped her try to facilitate and broker some deals for movies in Mexico where she went, as well as for some performances in nightclubs, such as one that she was scheduled for in New York. So at this stage, she was feeling pretty confident, getting herself together again. After many years, she was feeling more confident, more positive. She flew back in from having completed some deals for some films in Mexico. On the 7th of September, she was on the phone with her former sister-in-law, who she remained close to over the years, and she was one person that Dorothy could call, when times got rough and she needed somebody positive, somebody who knew her from way back. They were talking about the past, and the sense that her sister-in-law was getting was that the conversation would flow from a positive conversation to something where she thought, what's going on in Dorothy's mind? She sounds strange. I hope she's not in a state where she might do something, that we're hoping she doesn't do. So they talked for a while. They pretty much had a decent conversation for the most part. And she hung up. That was on the 7th of September. And the next day, her manager, she was on the phone with her manager about discussing appointments for her foot to put a cast on following that incident she had. And he got there at the time that he was supposed to pick her up and take her, and there was no response at the door. He managed to break in to her apartment and find her unresponsive and with little clothing on, and he was totally devastated, of course, when this happened. And that was on the 8th of September 1965. She was just 42 years old. It was determined that a cause of death was an accidental overdose of antidepressants. So, looking at just how things played out between the 7th and the 8th, and prior to that, she was happy appearing, and she seemed to be trying to get back into a swing of things again. So there's been conjecture about whether she had any role in the accidental overdose herself, or whether it was just an accident. Mr. Earl Mills was so sad and totally devastated, because he was the last person really the world knows that spoke to her. And he went to her apartment, and probably what played on his mind, or in his mind, was that what if I might have been able to save her, but he didn't know, nobody knew what was going on in there. And it's just one of those unfortunate things that can happen in life.